lost to 8-4, 4-2 on the road. Patrick Mahomes went 21 for 33, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jordan Love went 25 for 36, 267 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I want to throw out an interesting stat as well. Through their first 9 games as a starter in Green Bay, Jordan Love has just as many touchdowns and just as many yards as Aaron Rodgers did. I want to throw that stat out there because I want to make sure that we're keeping things in perspective, guys, and we're not being prisoners of the moment. I remember when Green Bay fell to 3 games under 500 this season, and people started talking about whether Jordan Love was actually the answer, whether Jordan Love was the franchise quarterback for Green Bay. And in that moment, I thought to myself, there's no way you can. The NFL, unlike any other sport, is where you see analysts and fans be such big prisoners of the moment. And I get it because there's so few games. There's only 16 games, and there's so much fervor, so much emotion tied to the NFL. But we have to look at things not so much in a vacuum, but sometimes on a more like macro level, and understand that if you have a 3-game stretch, yes, it can be pivotal, but it doesn't mean that you can't right the ship. And I think Green Bay and Jordan Love specifically is providing a great example of that. Listen, is Jordan Love a top 10 quarterback? No. I would say he's more top 15, closer to 15 than anything else. But this is also his first year as a full-time starting quarterback. He has dealt with injuries for his weapons, and no one speaks highly of Green Bay's defense. They're a good defense, but no one thinks of them as a top 5 defense, or even maybe a top 10, but that would be pushing it. So we have to think of all these factors. We have to consider all these factors when we're analyzing and judging how good a quarterback is, because there are so many factors. Though I do believe, like I said, the quarterback is the biggest factor for winning. I think that Jordan Love is a much better quarterback than people give him credit for. And I think this game shed light on that. This is what Green Bay can look like when Jordan Love is in rhythm, and he, doesn't put the ball in harm's way, and when he is making the right reads and he's getting the ball out early and allowing his playmakers to make plays. And like I said, one thing that this game sheds light on is really Kansas City's secondary, which was the issue last year, but up until this point, we had talked about how Kansas City has a top 3, statistically speaking, has a top 3 defense. And I talked about on our Instagram live show last Thursday, how Kansas City is winning games despite their offense. Their defense is the main reason that they're 8-4, not their offense. However, we now see, first of all, I think this game emphasizes that, but also it shows just how inconsistent the offense is right now, and just how bad of a space they're in. Listen, if you're in Kansas City, there's a lot of cause for concern on the offense side of the ball. Even with when they traded back for Mecole Hardman, Kansas City still has yet to establish a primary wide receiver outside of Travis Kelce. And listen, they've got, like I said, they got Mecole Hardman, Valdez-Scantling, and there's Tony and Sky Moore. But no one is stepping up in the way in which people expect it to. And and listen, the Tyreek Hill effect is starting, or the lack of Tyreek Hill is starting to finally play a factor in Kansas City's offense, and there's no question about it. So if you're Kansas City, these are things that need to be addressed and need to be fixed. However, I will say the rushing attack has been proficient out of necessity. Listen, as Isaiah Pacheco, had 18 carries, 110 yards, and one touchdown. That's great. That's phenomenal. That's out of necessity. So I think this does shed light on the cause for concern that people should have in Kansas City. You should, if you're Kansas City, there should be a little cause for concern, but I'm not stressing about this. I have a slight cause for concern, but I'm not stressing about this. I'm not worried about the Chiefs not making the AFC Championship game. But the same as in Philadelphia, if you're Kansas City now, the chinks in your armor have been put under a microscope and have been exposed to an extent. And so now teams know how to attack Kansas City. They stack the box. They're going to try and stop the run because they're not worried about the outside threats, outside Travis Kelce. And that's what Green Bay did. And if you're going to attack Kansas City's defense, you're going to attack the secondary, just like Green Bay did. And, I think if you're Kansas City and if you're Philadelphia, you're kind of in the same position. You're worried because now your deficiencies have been exposed on the national spotlight. And not only have your deficiencies been exposed, but people see that you can win, or that they can win by exposing those specific faults and deficiencies that you have. And that's where my concern would be if you're Philadelphia and Kansas City. And you guys know, like I said, Philadelphia I still believe is the best team in the NFC. But San Francisco just completed the best win of the season by defeating them in Philadelphia. And I still think Baltimore is the best team in the AFC. And actually, this Kansas City's most recent loss, like we're covering right now, to Green Bay, just emphasizes that more. I think, like I said, Baltimore is the best team in the AFC. I think they're in their catbird seat to make it out of the AFC. And Kansas City has to prove it to me now that they're the best team in the AFC. Because as of right now, like I said, I have Baltimore as the best team in the AFC. And our host, Dre Pennington, actually just stated it'll be interesting to see the Chiefs not have the number one seed and go through the playoffs. And Dre's right about that. That's actually a great point. Because for the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen Kansas City have the advantage of playing in Arrowhead, having that home field advantage. And we know how important, Dre, that home field advantage is. And this would be a huge, like you said, it'll be a huge test to see how good Kansas City really is. And listen, we all know how tough it is to win in Baltimore. So if Kansas City will be able to do that, because I don't think they're not gonna have home field advantage in the playoffs. So this will be a huge test to them when they go through the playoffs to see how good they really are and just how big of a factor their home field advantage was. I think every great quarterback has had to win a Super Bowl without having home field advantage. I know Brady did it most recently with Tampa Bay when they won their Super Bowl. I know Peyton Manning did it. I know Joe Montana did it. Aaron Rodgers obviously has done it as well. Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback that has, all-time great quarterback that's coming to my mind right now that hasn't had to win or hasn't had to, take a road to the Super Bowl without playing on the road. And this will be a great box he can check off on his resume if he can not only make it to Super Bowl but win a Super Bowl by not having home field advantage. And I think that'll be huge. Can he do it? That remains to be seen. We'll have to see about that. Also, I know we're not covering this, guys, but I just want to give a quick shout out to the Miami Dolphins, winning 45-15 against the Washington Commanders. Listen, I know I talked about Baltimore, being the best team in the AFC, and Kansas City being the second best team in the AFC. But Miami, listen, guys, Miami could very well make the AFC Championship game, and no one seems to be talking about them anymore. What Mike McDaniel is doing down there with Tua, and like I said, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and that defense is, it's really coming on strong. So watch out for Miami. Don't be surprised if Miami is playing in the AFC Championship game this year. Just want to throw that out there. Also, I know we're not doing college football show today, but just big shout out to Alabama for making the college football playoff. I know, listen, I can, as an athlete, not as an analyst, as an athlete, I completely empathize with Florida State. And how can you tell me as an athlete, I have a perfect record and I win my conference and I don't get to play in the college football playoff? As an athlete, it's hard for me to hear that. But as an analyst, I completely understand. And I agree with the decision that the committee made to put Alabama in over Florida State. The issue, though, that no one is talking about is in the criteria that the College Football Playoff Committee has written out, it states that they want to put in the 4 best teams. The issue, though, is that for the past 10 years, the committee has not honored that criteria. For the past 10 years, they have put in the teams that are the most deserving, who have quote-unquote earned it, both based off of their conference championships, based off their quote-unquote resume, things of that nature. But this is the first time that the committee has actually honored the statement of putting in the 4 best teams. But because the precedent and the standard has already been set of just putting in teams that are the most deserving, that's what people have become accustomed to. That's what we've been conditioned to expect. But when the committee now actually honors the criteria that they put out and actually puts in the 4 best teams, it now becomes an issue because now it's counter and it's polar to what the precedent previously was. And if we really want to get technical with it, the issue, what we really should be discussing is if the committee thinks Alabama and Texas are both better than Florida State, then you obviously have to think Georgia's better than Florida State as well. And if you think that Georgia is better than Florida State, why is Georgia not ranked ahead of Florida State? And that's where the issue, because then now it feels like if you're the committee that you just put Florida State right outside of the playoff spot to make them feel better. But if you really think that with Florida State without Jordan Travis is not as bad as you think, then drop them all the way to 6 or 7. Because if we're really thinking about it, with the way Florida State is constructing now, even if Rodemaker, their second-string quarterback, is healthy, I think Ohio State's better than Florida State. I think Georgia's better than Florida State. I definitely think Alabama's better than Florida State. And I definitely think that Texas is better than Florida State. So if you really feel that way about Florida State, you've got to drop them all the way down to 7. Because that's where I think they're at. I don't think Florida State's, the way they look now, I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country. And if it's about the 4 best teams, really Georgia is one of the 4 best teams in the country. Just me personally, I would take Washington out. I think Georgia's better than Washington. But the thing is, I can't say that for Georgia unequivocally. I think this is one year where we genuinely have 5 great teams. Maybe 6. Because I think Oregon's really great as well. It is unfortunate, though, because it's going to go to a 12-team format next year. Which is good because it allows more opportunity. However, it dilutes the meaning of each game, specifically the regular season games. I think 12 is too many teams. I think 6 is perfect. I think 8 is the max that it should go to. But it's going to go to 12. And I don't think this 12-team format is going to last. I think it's going to go from 12 to 8. Obviously, this is years from now, right? But I think 12 is too many teams. But I think that This is good, and we have to remember that this playoff format was always designed with the intention of leaving out a Power Five conference team. Because if they wanted to get all 5 Power Five conferences in, they would just create a 16 playoff format, right? But this was always designed with the intent of leaving out a Power Five team. And I don't want to get too deep into it. We'll save that for the college football playoff show, but I just want to touch on that real quick. But guys, that's it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in "Sorry to Bother You" show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/sorry to bother you show/tip. And we'll leave links to our website where you can purchase some of our merchandise, links to our Patreon, as well as links to our tipping site as well in the description, so that way you can go back and click on it and search it out whenever you like. But that's it for our show for today, guys. We'll be back again same time tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and